Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Canopy Cast with your hosts Christopher McGurn, John Michael Price, and Michael O'Connor. Canopy Cast is a guest-based podcast that showcases an ecosystem of expertise through thought leadership and innovation. We bring people together to provide value for our audience through impactful stories and experiences. Canopy Cast, an ecosystem of expertise. Today's episode is brought to you by Oxenham Group. The Oxenham Group is a recruiting company that focuses on why a person takes a job and what makes them stay. They do this by understanding one's motivation, skills, and personal mission. Oxenham's proprietary process focuses on three main areas: sociologist-prepared questions, IBM-proven assessments, and Gallup-Clifton strengths. The combined results give the interviewer valuable insight into the potential for close alignment and the likelihood of engagement. For more information, please call 605-610-3026 or visit their website at oxenhamgroup.com.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Canopy Cast. My name is Christopher McGurn with my two co-hosts, John Michael Price and Michael O'Connor. Today we have Bob Burg. Bob is a Hall of Fame keynote speaker and best-selling co-author of the Go Giver and Go Giver books series. Bob, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Great to be with all three of you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. The pleasure is all ours. Yeah, I know it's an interesting dynamic. We get it a lot with the three co-hosts here, kind of taking turns. I know it's a little different, so it's always fun to hear what people have to say about it. But yeah, it's really great to have you. You know, I would love to start this off, really just to get your background. What's your story for our listeners and viewers? Who is Bob Burg, and where did he come from?
Well, I began as a broadcaster actually in where I grew up in Massachusetts at a very small local radio station. Oh, did you grow up in Massachusetts also?
I did, yeah.
What part?
A little western central, a town called Ware near Worcester.
I know exactly where it is. I grew up in Natick, so.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Small world.
Far away, exactly.
Wow.
So yeah, started out as a sportscaster on radio, and then television at a very small ABC affiliate in the Midwestern United States, doing the news, and I just really wasn't very good at it, and I kind of graduated into sales. And so sales is kind of what my niche became. I knew nothing about sales when I first started. And so I floundered for the first few months, but I went into a bookstore and found a couple of books on sales, which doesn't sound like any big deal now. But back then, 40 years ago, that's not something that people knew about. I had no idea. In fact, I was amazed when I saw these books and it was about how to sell. There's really a way to do it. I didn't know. And so it opened up a whole world for me, and started to really study personal development and people, and so I really enjoyed it. Eventually worked my way up to sales manager of another company, and started teaching others what was working for me, and yada yada. Started speaking and writing, and here we are.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it's cool to see, how you went to go get the books, and here you are now as an author and speaker. Is there any correlation there? Is there kind of is that what inspired you to get into writing? Like seeing the impact that those books had on you when you were learning, did that kind of transition into the writing career and speaking career?
Well, my first book that I wrote, and this was back in the 90s, was called Endless Referrals, Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales. And that was really written only because a couple of speakers I knew. I had been speaking for a few years, and it had been fairly successful, but I hadn't gotten to that next level yet. And they said, Burg, it's time for you to write a book and really, help position you, be able to make yourself more marketable, get higher fees, blah, 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 and so forth. And so I wrote that first book really for utilitarian purposes, just as a marketing tool. And, but it was after that. I'd say every book I've written after that was more because I felt I had something to say. And as you said, wanted to share something that I felt could be of value.
That's phenomenal. And so obviously I definitely want to dive into, the Go Giver series and all of that, learn all about that. Now outside of the Go Giver series, were there other books that you wrote, or is that the primary focus?
Yeah, well, the Go Giver and then there are 4 books in the series, and those are all co-authored with John David Mann. And John's really the lead writer and storyteller. He's a fantastic writer. And 3 of the 4 books in the Go-Giver series are parables. Um, Everything I've written outside of the Go-Giver have been how-to books. So there was Endless Referrals, which is a how-to book for cultivating relationships that will lead to direct business and referrals. And probably my favorite book of all that I've written is called Adversaries into Allies, which is really about people skills and understanding how to, get the results you want when dealing with others in such a way that you make them feel good about themselves as well. And so that's kind of the book I feel I was put on earth to write. But certainly the Go-Giver has been, the biggest selling series altogether, especially the first book in the series.
Wow. And you said there were 4 in the Go-Giver series, is that correct?
Yeah, there's the Go-Giver, the original one, which is the parable. The second one is actually the only one not a parable. That's Go-Givers Sell More, which is sort of an application guide for the Go-Giver. Then the next parable in the series is the Go-Giver Leader, and then the 4th one in the series is the Go-Giver Influencer. And that's been out for a couple of years now.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and so looking at your profile, your background, I know there's like the speaking realm as well. Is that correct? So it's like you're an author. You also give talks, right? So are a lot of the talks that you're giving like about those books specifically? Are they about something else? Like what is the speaking realm looking like for you these days?
Well, for I guess 15 years, almost 20 years, well, about 15, I guess, it was primarily endless referrals. That was really my main topic. Since the Go-Giver's been out, that's really been the hot topic, and so most of my talks have been about that. Now, as I've gotten older, and I'm 62 now, and so I've never really enjoyed the traveling aspect. So over the last few years, I've limited my out of state speaking. Anyway, to no more than 20 a year. So I do much less of that now than I ever did. And I think the COVID situation it's gotten me so used to not being on the road that really, for me to get on the road now I don't even want to anymore.
There's no going back. Yeah.
They're really, yeah. So my business partner, Kathy Tajel, and I, we have a program, a 2-day workshop we put on called Endless Referrals, the Go-Giver Way, which we hold in Orlando every few months. And we're going to start holding them right here in Jupiter, Florida, where I live. Plus, we have a team of certified Go-Giver speakers, and we have a new online course that just came out called Endless Referrals, the Go-Giver Way as well. So really, at this point, much less is Bob Burg as a speaker and more as other stuff.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense, though. I understand that. Yeah.
Really, really quick, going off of what you were just talking about, the whole COVID situation and everything going on right now. Just the philosophy and the mentality of who you are and the books you've written and what you exude, I think, is so seeable and relevant to the times we're in right now. I mean, the entire, the mindset of providing that service for others, providing that value to others. I think recently, we saw a lot of organizations and a lot of individuals. I think we saw a lot of people's true colors, when things got bad, whether they were providing that value, whether they were putting the people before themselves or not. And I think that's so powerful. What are your thoughts on, the kind of environment that COVID has brought out from people?
Yeah, I think you make a good point. And what was interesting is you kind of really saw human nature at work, the good, the bad, and the ugly. At first, I think there was a lot of panic. And people, and we saw that in the shortage of toilet paper and water and all those, right? And then people kind of started to see, okay, this is a real thing. This is something we have to deal with. What do we do about it, and how can we make things better for others who are at a disadvantage in not being able? So now you had a whole bunch of people who were doing checks on their neighbors and making sure they had food to eat, and would let them know when they were going to the store in case they need something brought back. And you'd have people just, people in sales who are really checking in on their customers just to check in and make sure they're okay and see how they could help them. And they'd look for other ways to bring value to them over, aside from the product or service, which at first, just wasn't happening. So, yeah, I was really impressed with the way that people kind of stepped up to the plate and got it together and started being a lot more heroic than and of course you had the heroes anyway, the people on the front line that were battling, the doctors and healthcare providers who were battling this every day. So all in all, I was very impressed, understanding that it's a very, very difficult situation.
Yeah, I love that. I love the what you said about human nature. You kind of saw everything happen, and there was, like you said, that panic, that kind of despair. It was almost a hopelessness, and then people kind of realized that they could come together and fight back, and that there was hope, and there was community, and all of these interactions that have come out of it have been pretty amazing. I mean, even just for us, podcasting hasn't been quite. We didn't necessarily start it just because of COVID, but it's been one of the things where for us, we really wanted to, talk to amazing people in their industries and like yourself, and just kind of provide that community environment to our listeners and viewers. And I think it's been amazing to see the reactions, the involvement, and the caring from so many people to come together and just have conversations, or like you said, bring food to neighbors' houses. It's been really edifying.
Yeah.
And really, really fantastic to see.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I really, just to add on to that, I think it really is incredible to see how one thing, right, like COVID, can bring everyone together who normally wouldn't be brought together, right? There's just, going off of what both of you said, just that human aspect of not only the country but the world coming together and helping each other, from neighbor to neighbor, country to country. Just like everyone is in this together. It's not just certain people are affected, it's the world. And it's really, really powerful, really beautiful to see on a global scale everyone come together.
Yeah, and that does
But
generally when there is an earthquake or a hurricane or some massive natural disaster. By and large, people do really come together. People donate blood, they donate money, they donate time, they travel from far away to help out. So there's all sorts of people in the world, but we see all of them. But most people, I think, have pretty good intent, and in those situations is where you really see a lot of people come through.
hmm absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I had another question going back to Go Giver really quick. What's the meaning behind the name? I'm very curious. When I first came across it, I was like, that's really unique. I haven't heard anything like that. Like, what's the whole thought there? What's the story?
Uh, the basic premise is simply that shifting your focus, and that's really the key. Shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a pleasant way of conducting business, which it is, but it's also the most financially profitable way as well. And not for some way out woo-woo magical mystical reasons. It really makes logical sense when you think about it. When you're that person who can take your focus off yourself, who can move from what we call an I focus or me focus to an other focus, a focus on bringing value to others, a focus on making that person's life better, a focus on helping solve their problems and bring them what they need, whatever it happens to be. People feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be a part of your life. They want to do business with you if that's appropriate. And they often want to refer you to others and be your personal walking ambassador. So
Exactly.
focus on making ourselves valuable to other people. That's when good things happen. That's why John and I say that money is simply an echo of value, right? The thunder, if you will, to value's lightning, which really means nothing more than that the value comes first. Um, the focus needs to be on providing that value first. And the money you receive is really a natural result of the value you've provided.
I love that. I have never heard that put that way. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna remember that. I have to write that down in a notebook or something. But no, I really like that. The being
Good thing we're
connected.
recording, Chris.
Yeah, I know. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful we record these things so I can listen over and over. No, I really like that though. I've never heard it that way. The echo and the thunder. Yeah.
That's well, that statement was John's. I wouldn't have thought of something like that. That
It's the poetic touch.
he's amazing. You know, you can say the sky is blue, and when John gets through with it, you know, you'll like picture the colors of this. You know,
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
That's incredible. What's it been like, kind of co-authoring and working through all the creative processes with John? What's that been like for you?
well, it's really been a joy because the guy's just so good at what he does. You know, so I would imagine that you've got a lot of co-author situations where they're both equally good writers, and so there's probably a lot of trying to figure out who's it. That's not the case here, and so I'm a how-to guy. I'm step one, step two, step three, right? John is John's a storyteller and a magician with words. So it's just it's really a joy to really learn from him while we're co-authoring.
What a powerful duo, having the storyteller with the how-to guy. I think both are very, very necessary. So I think having that.
So John was also a very successful entrepreneur too. So that's the good part. It's not like there's anything. I mean, he's just as much. This guy knows business and leadership and sales. So it's a really neat thing. So it was very. I always say to people, I couldn't have gotten more fortunate, in this case, than to have co-authored this with him.
Yeah, and how did you meet? I'm very curious about where that relationship started.
Yeah, he was the editor-in-chief of a magazine I used to write for.
Oh,
So
wow.
so when I'd submit my monthly articles, John would email back the corrections. And a lot of editors, they don't even do that. It's pretty much they just do what they do, and sometimes the best stuff is left on the cutting room floor, or something's taken out of context, but no, he never did that. He would always write back, and he was always very polite. It was like, hey, put this here, I did this here, is this okay? And the running joke was I'd write him back every month, and I'd say, not only is it okay, you write my stuff better than I write my stuff. So back then, few people outside of a very niche industry knew John. Okay, but those who did knew he was brilliant. Now after the success of The Go-Giver, he sort of became the golden boy for publishers and agents. So whenever there was a celebrity or a big business person or somebody who had a story to tell, John was the guy who they'd reach out to. So now you can go into a bookstore and he's the co-author or ghost writer of tons of New York Times bestsellers. But back then, very few people knew who John was. Fortunately, I was one of the few who did. And so I always say that I asked John, and that when I say I asked John, I pleaded with John to co-author it and be the lead writer. And I remember he and his wife, back then fiance Anna, they had, and by the way, Michael, they actually live in Hadley, which I think is even closer to where than Natick. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but at that time, he and Anna were in Tampa visiting her mom, and so they actually took a 4-hour ride to Jupiter, and we all went out to dinner, and we discussed for about 3 or 4 hours what the book would look like, our thoughts about it, and so forth. And even then, he was still very busy, and it took about 3 weeks for him to finally call back and say, "Yeah, I think we've got something here." So that's really how how that happened. And then even after we wrote it, we were turned down by 25 or 26 New York publishing houses. So, it wasn't like it just all of a sudden happened, but, everything worked out perfectly because the publishing company who did pick it up turned out to be the perfect publishing partner. And they've just been amazingly supportive and wise and helpful in the whole journey.
That's incredible. And yeah, it's so true. Hadley is about a stone's throw from my house. So that's amazing. That whole journey is so fascinating. I think, like you were saying, knowing people before they're these, really famous people is so unique, because you got to experience him just working together at at the writing house. So that's such a unique experience. What was that? What was it like, kind of, I guess, for the two of you and your dynamic? Growing as the Go Giver gets published and everything kind of becomes huge. Like, what was that? Did that kind of change your dynamic, or was it just like excitement and let's write more?
Well, I don't think we were really thinking of writing more at the time. We had a feeling there was going to be a good audience for this book. We felt the time was right and the message was right. We didn't expect that it necessarily, well, I mean, I think every author expects that it's going to take off, because we all think, but we also doesn't usually take off that quickly. But this did. And so we were obviously delighted by it, but I don't think we really had in mind about writing any follow-ups. But our publisher called us or emailed us, excuse me, and asked if we'd write 2 more books. So they signed us to a 2-deal agreement soon after that. So that was, then it was just deciding what we were going to write about. Was it going to be another parable? And we kind of both had the idea about the next one being that accompanying guide almost. Because so many people would say, okay, yeah, the Go Giver, the story part's great. Can you give us even more examples of the how-to aspect? Which, of course, is very easy to do. So we put a whole lot of, we in Go Giver Sell More, we taught the basic aspects. We went deep. What does this law really, really mean? Because in the parable, you can only really do so much, because it's a story. So by the very nature, it's not really how-to. And so it was fun going into detail. But then also, we both knew so many people who had lived their lives and were very, very successful doing those very principles that we taught, but they were doing it long before they ever heard of us or the Go Giver. That's just how in fact, the early adopters of the Go Giver were people who were already very successful and had been doing that all their lives. They just hadn't named it that, or and like anything else, anything we shared, the 5 laws in the original book, there was nothing new about them. I mean, success principles are success principles. They've been around since the beginning. And successful people have always tapped into them, sometimes unconsciously. They didn't even know that's what they were doing. And other people studied and did. So then after Go Givers Sell More, then it was, answering the question, well, how would, Pindar and his group, what would their thoughts be about leadership? So that was the next natural story, if you will, next natural topic. And then the one about influence, because it's just, everything really rises and falls on influence, the ability to be able to move people to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal, and doing it in such a way that everyone comes away a winner and everyone feels as though they've come away a winner as well.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense as far as the approach, the mindset. Like, I totally get why you did it. There's a lot of sense there for sure.
I guess just one quick follow-up question from me is, throughout kind of like you mentioned, like these kind of human principles almost, in the Go Giver, was it like for you, kind of delving into this, I'm sure you've had lots of people kind of come up to you and say, wow, like I never thought about that. And like you said, it's like, this is like the way that people want to be treated. This is the way people should interact with each other anyway. What are your thoughts on, kind of the opposite side of the spectrum of, do you think that the other side of, the very kind of more take and get kind of mentality, do you see that kind of going away in a lot of industries, or kind of, is it still there? Is it growing? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question, because as much as we know that, when it comes to, let's say, corporate leadership, as many books have been written by these amazing leaders who have changed entire organizations and ways of doing business, and not only had really happy and engaged employees and team members, but have had a wonderful bottom line, have been very, very profitable. There's still a whole big, I guess, majority of business leaders out there who haven't really seemed to pick up on that as we might think, and they're still top-down command and control, and this is how it is, and it's my way or the highway, and so forth. And we read articles say that I mean, and I don't know if it's true or not, but that 75% of the workforce feels disengaged and not part of it. Now, you might say, well, so what if they feel disengaged? They're being paid and they have a job to do. Well, that's fine, but they don't do their job as well when they're feeling disengaged. Okay, so even if you get past the just caring about people and wanting people to feel good about what they do, which in and of itself is a great thing, even putting that aside, the fact is, if you're a leader, you do want the most profitable company that you can have, and you're going to be much more profitable when your employees feel engaged and feel part of it, and feel valued and feel honored, and they trust you and they know you have their best interest at heart, and they feel as though what they're doing for work is just bigger than themselves. These are all natural aspects of human nature we all have, that we want to be part of something. It's got to be more than just a paycheck. If somebody's going to do, hey, the paycheck's important. Of course it is. But once you get past that aspect, there's more to it than that. So, you would think that leaders would really make a point of learning how to lead in a way that is, proven to be best for everyone involved. And I think there's still a lot that haven't. Now, on the other side, though, there's a lot that have. And they've written wonderful books. People like Bob Chapman, who wrote Everybody Matters. Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last is a wonderful book. I mean, there's just so many out there. I could name them because I could, but I have to have my back to y'all and be, but yeah, there's a lot out there, and anyone can get that information and really learn how to lead and do so in a way that benefits everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
I had oh, go ahead, Chris. Mine can wait. No, mine can wait. Mine can wait.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah. I've been quiet. I might as well be more quiet.
No worries. I was actually just gonna say, because I know that we only have a few minutes left and we want to respect your time, Bob.
That's okay. Well, we got to get John in the conversation more, though, too.
Yes, exactly. So I was just gonna say, guys, like for final questions, at John right here, go for. But I was just gonna kind of transition into final questions here. But yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, for sure. I was just wondering, from an author's perspective, I love talking to people and hearing their thoughts on the moment when they realized that their work was being successful. So, what was that moment for you where you realized, this book is being accepted, people are loving it, and it's going better than, maybe you even thought it was going to?
Yeah. Well, that's where that great thing called email really came into play. I got email a whole lot. And again, it was by the people who didn't need it, right? It was the people who are already very, very successful. And so many of them had the same theme, that, this is how I built my business. This is how this is what I've been trying to tell people, but they haven't listened to me because, they watch TV and where you're supposed to be this ruthless, horrible, whatever, all the horrible messages we get about lack and so forth on TV, and the negative messages about money and business and prosperity and so forth. And so that's really how we first knew this thing was bigger than we thought. And we started having companies that are ordering tens and hundreds and thousands of the books to go through their organization. So that was kind of when we knew that this was something special. And then the second wave of adapters were the people who would write to say they got the book from one of their mentors, or as part of their company book club, or as what have you. So that's really how we knew, and it felt great. I mean, I don't think there's anything for an author to have a better comment for somebody to tell you that, or to say that they're using it as a family discussion guide, or they're giving it to their kid who graduated high school. And, I mean, these kind of things, that there's just nothing, there's no better feeling. So usually either John or myself gets it. And I can't tell you how many times we forwarded these things, to each other, so that we, each other would know.
That's awesome. And then follow up on that, have you ever had someone that didn't know who you were suggest the book to you?
No, not that, but we've had a lot of people who have people who knew me or Facebook friends or a Twitter friend or something like that, who would write to say, I met someone today at blah, 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 and they handed me this book and said, you have to read it, that kind of thing. So and they didn't know I knew you, or, something like that. So that
That's
we
funny.
get a lot. And that's just always such a nice compliment to hear.
Yeah. I think that's the height of, being successful for a lot of people, that realization. I know a lot of artists have experienced that, authors of, on their track to getting famous, they're just famous enough where a lot of people know them, but maybe people don't recognize the face, and, if they interact with them day to day, they wouldn't realize. And, I've talked to some people, and they're like, yeah, I was just hanging out, and someone was like, you got to check out this song, it's awesome. And it was their song. It's just too funny.
I'm sure that was a great feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike, what about you? Any final question there?
My final question on the previous like a couple questions ago, talking about books and other books. What's your favorite book that you haven't written?
My favorite book that I haven't written? Well, there's again so many of them. I would say though that it is probably it's a book called The Secret of Selling Anything. It was not named by the author. It was actually published after he passed away. His name was Harry Browne, Browne. And Harry was several times a best-selling author of books on economics and philosophy. He wrote a great book many years ago called How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World. Just a brilliant thinker and really a great guy. I had a chance to get to know him for a while, and just I consider him to be one of my real heroes in life. But this book was I think he wrote it actually as a training manual for the sales team he was leading at the time back in the 60s. And it was two short manuscripts, two brief manuscripts. One was on understanding human nature, and the other was on understanding human nature as it relates to sales. It was absolutely brilliant. I can't even say enough about it. I actually did a blog review on this book. If you go to Burg, BURG.com/blog, and then in the search you put in The Secret of Selling, and if you use those words, it will then come up, because it was The Secret of Selling Need Not Be a Secret. That was the name of the article I did. And of course, but by the way, the big secret is find out what people want and help them to get it. As Harry said, that secret need not be a secret. Though it wasn't his title. That was actually just a passage in the book, and they used that as the title because Harry's widow found the two hard drives after he passed. And she reached out to a person who's a direct response marketer who published it independently. And it's one of those books few people have heard about, but all of us who have read it have tried to tell everybody about it. It's really understanding human nature. And here's why I think this is so important, because everything we do in life is about others. It's about people. So understanding human nature, which is really nothing more than the general psychological characteristics, feelings, beliefs of humankind as relates to all humans, right? So if you don't really understand that, you're kind of behind the 8 ball. But when you do understand human nature and you honor it, it doesn't mean you love everything about it, certainly, because there's a lot about human nature not to love, actually, okay? But understand it and respect it for what it is, then you're in a position to work within it. Successful people work within truths. They don't deny truths. They don't ignore truths. They accept them. That doesn't mean they're held back by them, but they use those truths in order to move things forward, in order to find solutions, in order to create value for the marketplace. And so I thought his book was just, and it's a short read too. It was written in the 60s, so there's a lot of kind of 60s language in there. So that stuff is sort of a little, but the principles hold absolutely positively true. That's probably a longer answer than you wanted to. What's my favorite?
No, that was perfect. I will definitely be getting it.
Yeah, definitely have to check that out. And and read that for sure. Yeah, thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I know we are unfortunately out of time, but there he is, a Hall of Fame keynote speaker and best-selling co-author of The Go-Giver and The Go-Giver book series, Bob Burg. Bob, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really been awesome to have you. We really appreciate it. For all of our listeners and viewers, definitely make sure to check his website out, burg.com. Definitely check out The Go-Giver and The Go-Giver series. We're going to be dropping links. Definitely show him some love to this amazing man. Bob, thanks again so much for coming on here.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you.
Of course, of course. And for all of our listeners and viewers, we'll catch you next time.